Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national, and here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. If you want to join us, I'll be doing some calls from, I'd say about a half hour from now till about the end of the show, the end of the first hour. So if you want to join in, feel free. And a couple of headlines before we get into everything we're about to get into. Steve Bannon was released from prison today. He'll be likely going back, I think. I think that's the story that I saw, but was released. I can give you the details on that in a little bit. Harris is up by 5 points, according to this poll. Let me give you the poll. I don't know how reputable the poll is, but let's see. Hold on a second here. Susquehanna University Polling and Research. Harris at 51.7% to Trump's 46.6% in Michigan. This is going to be a horse race, but that's quite a spread. Let's see. Let's see who they interviewed here. 46%, da-da-da-da-da. Great Lakes, Michigan. She's been hitting it hard. He's been hitting it hard. I think Trump's going to win Michigan. That's my thought. I don't think, I think he wins Michigan. He's going to win North Carolina as well. I'm unsure about Pennsylvania. So I think everybody, and Michigan, I'm not totally sure about it either. But I think it's in play. And people have to get out, right? You got to get out and you got to get there. So we'll be digging into that a little bit as well. There's a couple of critical congressional races as well in Michigan and Pennsylvania. So bringing you a couple of those candidates too in the days to come. But a couple other things I want to get into before I dig in on that stuff. You've got the judge in the assassination case, Eileen Cannon, says she will not recuse herself. Apparently she was asked to recuse herself, and she won't. Good for her. CNN has banned a pro-Trump commentator. I don't know if he's a pro-Trump. I think we should say he's a conservative commentator. Whatever. I guess he identifies as pro-Trump. I don't know him. I'm not familiar with his work. Ryan Gadursky for saying, I hope your beeper doesn't blow up at a Muslim commentator on CNN, Mehdi Hassan, who's quite a lefty. And that doesn't mean because he's a lefty he should get his beeper blown up. But, I get the tongue-in-cheek reference. It's kind of funny. But it's not funny, right? Not funny. When the left says stuff like that, they have a good time and they're allowed to say stuff. We can't say anything. Let's see what else we got. Jon Stewart's defending Tony Hinchcliffe over his controversial joke at the Trump rally. Well, honestly, I would defend him too, and I didn't like the joke at all. I don't think it was even a joke. If you ask me, the guy's a plant. He was trying to serve up a swing in Hispanic support, in particular Puerto Ricans, that Harris was making a play for, because the timing just seems so suspect, so curious. But even that, when it comes to free speech, you got to take the good with the bad. That's just how it goes, right? They want to say it was a Nazi rally. It was a Nazi rally. The reason they're saying that is because the Nazis had a rally there. Not there per se, but at the old Madison Square Garden. What does that mean? We don't like it, but this is a part of the free speech, right? These guys got together, and this was their political party, and this is what they believed. I don't like it. May the best idea win. And this is why we need free speech, so we can combat stupid ideas like that. You can't just say, hey, I think your idea is stupid. We're not going to let anybody hear it. I don't think it works that way. That's why I invite people on the show. But there is a time where you have to be somewhat judicious. And if you know someone's going to go on and on and on with either lies or hate, and that's not something you're willing to entertain, then you could lay that out in the beginning as part of the rules of your conversation. And I know I would, right? If I were to interview Louis Farrakhan or David Duke, I would make it clear that this isn't going to be a hate fest. You know, if you can get one zinger in, and then I'm going to call you out on it, and then we're going to move on because we can't spend the entire interview arguing over one point. So I think, that's how you have to handle those things. But I wouldn't say, tell him to shut up so he can't talk. Because then they could say, tell Rich Valdez to shut up so he can't talk. And we never want that, right? If we don't want it for ourselves, we shouldn't want it for anybody else. The golden rule. Anyway, I want to move on because there's some good audio out there. You got Trump at Mar-a-Lago today. Yesterday he was at the big faith gathering. And we're going to talk about that faith gathering a little bit later. Evangelical Christian vote, Catholic vote, the Orthodox Christian vote, Coptic Christian vote. There's a lot of denominations and brands within Christianity that are critical to a Trump victory, and he's been making his appeals to them, sustained appeals, and I think that's a good thing. You've got Kamala Harris with competing presentations. He was in Mar-a-Lago. She was in D.C. at the mall, at the same place that Trump did his Stop the Steal January 6th rally. And I think that was, her way of trying to invoke that type of sentiment and kind of bring that back to the forefront. I don't know if it's effective or not, but that's what she did. Tim Walz today also making comments on how important it is to have amnesty for the millions of illegal immigrants in our country. Listen to cut number 4, Tim Walz. Check this out.
But we can't forsake this idea that there are pathways to citizenship that take too long, and you can get people who are here, want to be here, contributing to this country, give them that pathway that's legal. And I think that's what the vice president has said. She said she'd sign the bill immediately.
I listened to this stuff, and all I could say is I see how they get over on people. And honestly, it means it's up to you and it's up to me to educate people a little bit more so that they can learn the code words, or as the Democrats would say, the dog whistles, right? When you're talking about breaking the law, one of the words you use is comprehensive or legal pathway, right? They need a legal pathway to citizenship. That means we're breaking the rules here. We're cutting the line, and we're changing things so that you can get preferential treatment. That's what it comes down to. When they say equal rights, they mean special treatment for people that don't deserve certain rights, right, or aren't entitled to certain rights. You have to learn how to interpret what they're saying. Otherwise, you get duped. Why? Because you're a good person. And when you're a well-intentioned person that wants the best for everyone around you, you don't wish anyone harm, you look at the world through those eyes. But when you're dealing with someone who wishes you harm, who thinks you're a fascist, who thinks you're a violent domestic extremist, who thinks the FBI needs to follow you and add a threat tag to you and your communications because you might be a radical traditional Catholic or a dangerous evangelical, we got a problem here. We have to know who we're dealing with. We got to know who our adversaries are, who our enemies are, who our allies are. And clearly talk like this from Tim Walz saying that we can't forsake this idea that there are pathways to citizenship that are taking too long. And you got to get people who are here and want to be here, contributing to this country. Give them a pathway that's legal. He's shouting, change the immigration laws to allow anybody who wants to come here so they can be allowed to work for slave wages, so they can be allowed to work at 12, 13, 14, whether it's in a chicken factory overnight or on some street corner in Jackson Heights, Queens, selling their body. That's what he's talking about. More human trafficking, more labor trafficking. He should be ashamed of himself. He really should. And I also want to get into a little bit about what's going on, right? We have so much happening right now. People are saying as we get closer to Election Day, there's violence that could be expected after the election, destruction to personal property, irrespective of whichever side wins. But I can tell you, I think if Trump wins, you're not going to see a bunch of MAGA people out there breaking things, right? It's just not going to happen. But when Trump won last time, Inauguration Day and all that, there was all sorts of burning going on, right? They were burning stuff. They were vandalizing stuff. This is how they roll, the left. So when it comes to all of that, I want to have a conversation on that because ultimately these things can't be allowed, whether it's the left, whether it's Antifa, whether it's Black Lives Matter. This violence, the destruction, the craziness, the confusion that they spread is not what we need. So I want to talk with Dr. Kevin McGary about that. He's got a brand new book out that kind of walks us through that, and we're going to do that straight ahead, plus your calls and more right after that. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
1 week from today, you will have the chance to make a decision that directly impacts your life, the life of your family, and the future of this country we love. And it will probably be the most important vote you ever cast. And this election is more than just a choice between two parties and two different candidates. It is a choice about whether we have a country rooted in freedom for every American or ruled by chaos and division.
That, of course, is Vice President Kamala Harris today making remarks. She was at a rally in Washington, D.C. at the mall, of course, saying this is the most important election ever, and we're not going to be ruled by chaos and division. And this just echoes what she's been talking about all week, right? And honestly, since the beginning of the campaign, this was Biden's campaign strategy, right? With the tiki torches and all of that stuff that they constantly talked about with Trump being Hitlerian is what the reference they make. And she says it's chaos and division and turning a new page. And she represents a new generation of leadership as if she's not part of the leadership now. The whole thing is laughable, but some people are buying it. And I want to dig into this because we've seen it before. We've seen it with the other extremist movements like Black Lives Matter and others, right? Antifa et al. They're all part and parcel of the same Marxist movement. And to have this conversation, I want to speak with Dr. Kevin McGary. He's an author and a trainer, keynote speaker. And he's got a new book that I think everybody should get a copy of. And let me see, I have it right here. I just have to click on it because they didn't spell out the name of the book for me. So forgive me, people. The name of the book is The Archetypes of American Politics, Overlords, House Negroes, Field Negroes, Which One Are You? Provocative title. Dr. McGary, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Rich. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you.
Well, Dr. Mack, I appreciate it because I think this is a conversation that I'm looking forward to having, and B, I think is an interesting one because some people really don't dig deep. They just think, well, these guys are Marxist sympathizers, or they're from the left and they don't like it. But I think it goes a lot deeper, and I think you kind of delve into that in your book. Let's talk a little bit about the clip that you just heard from Kamala Harris and how she's constantly using these us versus them tactics to promote her campaign, and in my opinion, never really talking about what she brings to the table. Does that surprise you at all?
No, it's not surprising with Kamala. I mean, she doesn't, she's really an empty suit. She is a quintessential puppet of the globalist overlords. And in that, she doesn't really know much. She doesn't, even when she was if you look at the trajectory of her career, she's always failed upwards. I mean, in other words, she's been constantly talked about as being lazy and not very serious. And you could tell she's not a serious person. When you ask her about anything, she says, well, I grew up in the middle class, and I remember when. It's like, well, wait. I was talking about how do we get out of this cycle of inflation. You're talking about all this other stuff. There's just not a whole lot there. And that's part of the problem that we have to kind of work through. And that's where this book revealed the archetypes of American politics gets into, because it confirms that there's certain pathologies that go deeper, as you said, Rich, goes deeper than just, that's a crazy Marxist, or that's that person's, really shallow and doesn't know much. There's a pathology that's guiding where we are today. And, obviously this is where it comes from. Malcolm X, who did a speech to the grassroots, that's what it was entitled, in 1963. And he said he basically made a comparison of life on the plantation and life in America. And he says, really the interpersonal communication and the characteristics of those involved on the plantation have spilled over in general to America and American politics. He says you have your overlords, which right now I would characterize as your World Economic Forum, Jeff Bezos, Klaus Schwab, Noah Harari, those types, right? Soros,
wackos,
Bill Gates. Yeah, these are the overlords. These are the architects. They're architecting a new, sort of frontier for the world, right? And then you have your house Negro types. Now, Malcolm X went into detail on these. He says these are the ones who do the bidding of the overlords. These are the ones who are on the plantation. They were closely associated with the overlord's family. They lived in an attic or the basement, but they were in the house. They were when the family ate, they ate, and they got the choice scraps off the table, and they were paid. Basically, their compensation was to make sure that no one leaves the plantation. So fundamentally, they were the ones that snitched on Frederick Douglass when he tried to escape a few times. It was the house Negroes that said, hey, Freddie's making a break tomorrow. And, basically their job is to make sure to keep everybody on the plantation. In today's sort of narrative, I would categorize the mainstream media, your people like Kamala Harris and Oprah and obviously Joy Reid and the entire cast of The View. And these archetypes go beyond skin color and all of that. It has nothing to do with ethnicity or skin color. It has to do with a pathology, a mindset that's governing these people. But that's why you hear things like Hitler, Nazism, and those types of pejoratives, because they have to guilt and shame people and try to keep people on the plantation with the groupthink, the collectivist idea. It's the field Negroes that are the third category, and those are people like you and I, Rich, that just want to be free.
Amen to that. Doc, we're going to come right back with you, folk. We're coming back with Dr. McGary, and we're going to discuss his book about these archetypes. Keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
And Stuart, it's left to Kamala Harris to be the shining city on a hill candidate. Who would have thunk it?
Yeah, the party that I was drawn to, that Molly's talking about, that Ronald Reagan announced for president in front of the Statue of Liberty. He signed a bill that made everyone in the country legal before 1983. His last speech was an ode to immigration. Yeah. And there actually, when he was running against George Bush for the primary, you can see it on YouTube. Yeah. There is a debate they had in Texas where they actually get in an argument about who is more liberal on immigration. And, it's like your head explodes. But that was something that the party embraced. And now it's just really, it's not, the Republican Party is not a traditional American party. It's an extremist movement.
That is the Joy Reid Show, and she's there, of course, with her guest. What number was that? Stuart Stevens is the guest. And again, it's an extremist party. It's this divisive rhetoric, and I want to continue our conversation with somebody who literally written the book on this. The Archetypes of American Politics. Overlords, House Negroes, Field Negroes, which one are you? And we're talking with Dr. Kevin McGary, McGary, Dr. Mac. And he notes that Malcolm X famously observed that plantation politics have spilled into American society, where the same power structures that once ruled the plantation now govern our political sphere. Now, with that being said, we've kind of walked through a couple of them, and we left off with who are the Field Negroes, Dr. Mac.
Yeah, so Malcolm X classified himself as a field Negro. He says anybody that wants to be free, that recognizes that they have innate, God-given natural rights to freedom, that they're, that reject any structures, any sort of totalitarian or authoritarian structures over them. Those are the people that are, your field Negro types. The House Negroes had to keep a close eye on the field Negroes because the field Negroes did all of the work, and they were always scheming to just get free of this oppressive, slave antebellum South. And so they were always looking for ways to escape. Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Henry Box, and others risked life and limb multiple times in order to escape the oppressive tactics of the overlords. But the bottom line is folks like you and I, Rich, are we just want to be free. Look, I should be able to just express to my friends, family, whoever, that I want to vote for Trump, or I just want to vote different this time, or I just want to be independent voter. I don't want to go into the globalist Marxist kind of extremes that the Democrat Party is under. But we always get when we just say that, we're castigated. Oh, you're a white Christian nationalist. You're a white racist. You're a whitey evangelical. I mean, you're a Nazi. You're a Hitler. You're a fascist. I mean, these things they were saying last week. But what this book does is it help expose that these people are not like dumb or that, but they're motivated off of a pathology, and the pathology says we must stay together. We must have this collectivist groupthink. We must have, stay on this sort of plantation, if you will. And therefore any dissenting voices are the enemy. And this used to not be. I mean, we used to be able to, say, our political affiliations or our leanings, and we used to say, well, I respectfully disagree, but, we used to kind of just walk away friends and just know where we are and respectfully disagree. Now, those days are over. You can't say something, even to family members, without being practically cursed out for just wanting to do something different or thinking different. And so right now, it's the pathologies are really raging right now because the overlords are anxious to get us under this the World Economic Forum, Great Reset, globalist kind of thing. And so everybody's incented to make sure that we get the number one puppet in office so we can continue down this track of global dominance with one world government. And, quite honestly, Trump is the only person probably on the planet who has the capacity, the gumption, the fortitude, to stand against all that. And so we have an opportunity to actually vote for somebody that's really going to help us to maintain our freedom just a little longer. Certainly there's a trajectory and a path that the world is going, in a direction, but at least we can forestall that for a period of time. Well, how long that lasts, I don't know. But Trump is the guy right now who could make that difference. So, yeah.
I agree. Folks, again, we're on with Dr. Mack. Kevin McGary is the author of The Archetypes of American Politics, Overlords, House Negroes, Field Negroes, Which One Are You? This book just came out, and I highly recommend reading it. Why? Because I think this is a fascinating topic. And the reason why is I think sometimes it's a really good idea to have an understanding of why people fit one of these archetypes and why they espouse them. And when I think I see the benefit, right? I think that's what I'm trying to say. But what I don't see is the inspiration. I think that's not something only you could kind of share with us. What struck you where you said, I need to write about this so that people have a good understanding of why people are doing these things?
Yeah. So what I was always left with when I would listen to Joy Reid periodically, I never look at MSNBC, but when I hear her hyperbolic, shrill hysterics periodically on clips, I would say, what in the world is the matter with that lady? She is literally, she's crazy. And but I said there has to be something deeper, because she's an intelligent person. She's learned, she's educated, she's and so I couldn't figure it out. And so I started to research because I thought everybody is just hysterical and shrill on the one side right now. You can't disagree, amicably anymore, So I started to do some research, and I came across, Malcolm X's proclamation about these basic mindsets. And I thought, hey, that really resonates strongly. If you overlay that onto all of America, forget any skin color, ethnicity, it has nothing to do with that. If you just overlay the mindset, the pathology that drives people, their actions and intentions, you can understand better. So I understand Joy Reid. I mean, she's the only show that is completely anti-Trump, completely anti-Republican, that you can count on every night if you're of that mindset to dial her in, and you'll get your daily bread, right? She will never let you down. So there is a real narrow segment. It's very narrow, but it's hers. And she gets compensated very, very well for being that voice on that. So, of course, she's going to do what she's doing. She's also compensated by way of social credibility or social cred. She's invited to all the elitist, leftist, globalist parties. She's compensated, basically to do what she does. She is a smart person. She is not dumb. She is not a fool. But if you just listen to her, you will suffer with, this person is an absolute fool. I mean, why? But it's beyond that. If you understand the pathology, this gives you a lot more comfort with seeing the game as it's being played, as opposed to just labeling and dismissing people. And that's what I was stuck with until I understood, these are the driving factors. This is the motivation. This is the pathology that these people operate under. So that's why they're doing what they're doing. And once you get that understanding, you can rest a lot more comfortably. You still see this crazy stuff, but it doesn't bother you quite as much because you recognize that they're stricken with the pathology, that they have to, conform to the dictates of the overlords. The overlords are agitated because they really wanted to bring this thing, the United States, under this, Great Reset, this next go-round. And then Trump comes up and he says, I'm running again. And it just disturbed the entire apple cart. And now they're saying, look, we're a week away. We're behind. Let's call these people Hitler, fascists, not commies, but Hitler's, fascists, and not Nazis, and whatever else we can, because we have to try to maintain silencing and guilting and shaming people so we can maybe curve some of those votes for Trump. And that's what you see right now.
Well put. Folks, our guest is Dr. Mac McGary. His book, The Archetypes of American Politics, subtitle, Overlords, House Negroes, Field Negroes, Which One Are You? And again, this, is written from your expertise as the founder of Every Black Life Matters, and I get that. But really, the lesson here is not a racial one per se. This politics of plantation applies all over the place, including with my people, right? The Puerto Ricans. You see this play out everywhere.
Everywhere. Everybody, that's why I said, which one are you? Because everyone in America, if you're over 18, you're at voting age, you fit into one of these categories. So it's important that you understand what is an overlord, a globalist overlord? What's their motivation? What are they doing? It's important you understand what is the archetype, the pathology of a House Negro. Am I one of those? Do I kind of just go along to get along? I'll go along with the Marxists as long as they, are not cower because I don't want to be canceled or any of that. Or am I a field Negro? Am I constantly looking to be set free? And the pathology of a field Negro is always looking for freedom. You don't want to be under any kind of, authoritarian or totalitarian rule or schemes or policies or anything like that that's going to steal your voice. You want to always be heard, and you want to be independent. You want to make your own choices, and you want to be free. That's the difference.
Outstanding. Folks, we're coming right back with our guest, Dr. Mack. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
And just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American.
So that is President Joe Biden saying that Trump supporters are garbage. Meanwhile, you've got one comedian that makes a horrible joke. I happen to be Puerto Rican, by the way. I thought this guy was a pendejo, and I was there. And I wouldn't say all comedians are pieces of garbage, but yeah, Joe Biden felt the need to say that we're all pieces of garbage. Dr. Kevin McGary, what's going on with Joe Biden?
Well, first of all, he's cognitively, significantly declined. So he's basically, and he was the quintessential House Negro and the pathology of the House Negro puppet. All right, for the globalist overlords. So. So basically, he's trying to continue to fulfill his role for his little bit of time that he has left. By next Tuesday, we'll know who the next president is going to be. We highly suspect it'll be our man Trump, who will give us a whole new direction because right now it's not working. And so Biden is trying to do all he can to fulfill the remainder of his role, which is to castigate entire populations of Trump supporters. We saw with Hillary last week calling us all Nazis. She said anybody that shows up at Madison Square Garden is a Nazi. We never saw this where you would take an entire population of somebody's supporters up until Hillary ran against Trump the first time. She called us deplorables. But we really haven't seen this in this level of nastiness in politics, where you would castigate entire swaths of people who supported somebody else. And then now it's just commonplace for any of Trump's supporters. They're hoping that they can peel off a percentage or two and keep us home. And it's not going to work. I mean, right now, everybody just wants to be free. More importantly, we want to be free of this 300+% inflation rate. We want to be free of all of these crazy tropes for people who just have a different idea, a different opinion. And we just got to be free of this corrupt government that's really, putting innocent people behind bars, 85-year-old grandmothers for just walking by a clinic and praying. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's just it's completely un-American. And then we want a better way to deal with the nuclear threat. I mean, Biden said earlier this year we have the threat of
Right.
nuclear Armageddon, and that was just between Ukraine and Russia. Now we exacerbate that with Iran and Israel, and then now China and Taiwan just this week. So we have some major issues. We can't have neophytes or people who are puppets to handle that. We need the man who's got the utmost respect globally to do that.
I think you're spot on there. And outside of your expertise in cybersecurity and analyzing these archetypes and these pathologies and the politics of plantations, if you take that hat off for a second and put on your prognosticator hat, how do you see the next 7 days playing out?
I see that. So I anticipate that Trump will win a landslide win. That's what I anticipate. Now, and that'll be actual votes cast in his behalf. The ballots that will ultimately count is a different picture, right? We have to kind of allow for the cheat factor in this. We're already seeing multiple instances of that across key battlegrounds, but I think the swell of the Trump vote will be so large that it'll be hard for them to overcome with the cheat. But so we may not see the landslide that I think it'll actually be, but we will still see a Trump win. I don't think they'll be able to overcome the margins there.
I think you're right, and I hope you're right.
Yeah. Well, here's why. Here's one of the biggest factors. There's a significant percentage of black communities and Hispanic communities that are peeling off. And these are traditional Democrat strongholds that are peeling off now, especially young black men. And I would say ages 18 to 30. Huge segment of black men they're just not going for it. They're like, nope, no, I've had enough of the suffering under this administration, and I liked what it was when Trump was in office, and they're going to vote for him. The black women, we still have some issues there, especially educated black women. They're much more emotionally driven, and a lot less, pragmatic in that way and principled. And so we're still not going to see a significant percentage of women, but he'll at least match the amount of black women that he had last time and probably do 5% or maybe 10% over that. And as far as the suburban women, I think that a lot of them are coming back this time. They see that the gamesmanship that was played on them last time, and I think they're going to vote in great percentages on Trump's behalf. They've seen the carnage of this last 4 years. Yeah. They're not going to vote with their ovaries. They're going to vote with their family in mind, the world in mind, and So I think we'll see a lot of that this time as opposed to last time.
All right, Doc, I'm going to pause you right there. We're going to come back and let everybody know where they can get a copy of the book. Keep it locked right here. We're coming back with Dr. Mack.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation as we wrap with Dr. Kevin McGary. Dr. Mack has written the book, The Archetypes of American Politics. Doc, tell them how to get the book, how to find you, and how to follow you.
Excellent. So all you have to do is go to Amazon. It's called Revealed, and then : The Archetypes of American Politics. So Revealed is the first word. You could do that. You can also do a search on Dr. Mack or Kevin McGary, either or. But it's on Amazon. It's on Kindle. So if you want to get an immediate version and start reading tonight, you can do that. So you can find me there. You can also find me on YouTube. I do all current events and in relation to these archetypes, daily and long form and shorts. And you can find me on YouTube on Off the Plantation, The Journey Toward Freedom. So Off the Plantation, you can find me on YouTube. And then you could, if you want to have any conversation with me, bring me out and have me discuss or a panel or whatever, you can find me on every Black Lives Matters, everyblm.com, everyblm.com.
Outstanding. Doc, I want to thank you for sharing the book with us and your thoughts. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Godspeed.
Appreciate you, Rich. Take care.
Yes, sir. And amigos, we're coming right back with hour number 2. We're going to talk about a new film. We're going to talk about Trump's visit to the Faith Advisory, as well as so much more, plus your calls as well. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national, and the phone number, if you want to call us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to talk about, obviously, the election, right? The election, we're bringing you the best election coverage. This is, I'm going to arguably say, probably the only, if not the biggest, live show in this day part, right? There might be some other large shows in this day part, but they're not live. They record them earlier in the day, and we're bringing you everything as it happens in real time. So welcome to the show. I'm happy to be here. And Kamala Harris couldn't figure out how to pull off a big rally like El Trompitos unless she went to the swamp. So what'd she do? She held a rally in the swamp right in D.C. at the National Mall, invited all of her friends in the swamp, the entire federal government, and everybody else that they could muster up, and they showed up. And she had a bunch of people, a lot of people. And she claims that she is going to find common ground. And I don't know that she's actually going to find any common ground, but I want you to hear a couple of clips that we have from Kamala Harris at the rally tonight. Listen to this.
We know who Donald Trump is. He is the person who stood at this very spot nearly 4 years ago and sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol to overturn the will of the people in a free and fair election. An election that he knew he lost. Americans died as a result of that attack. 140 law enforcement officers were injured because of that attack. And while Donald Trump sat in the White House watching as the violence unfolded on television, he was told by his staff that the mob wanted to kill his own vice president. And Donald Trump responded with 2 words: so what?
There goes Kamala Harris again, lying her butt off, right? It almost sounds like she's blaming the entire January 6th incident on Donaldus Magnus, El Trompito, the 45th president of these United States. Now, you know, obviously that's not true. And they're doing the same thing now. This is a common tactic of theirs, right? I don't know who put this guy up to this bad joke he said in Madison Square Garden. And I'm going to call it a bad joke in the spirit of fairness. But whether it was knowingly or unknowingly, wittingly or unwittingly, this man sabotaged part of the Puerto Rican support that President Trump had been enjoying. That's a fact, right? I don't know to what degree. But, you know, some people were up in arms about it, and it could have been manufactured outrage, which I think largely it was. I've yet to really meet any Puerto Ricans that were like, man, I'm not voting for him as a result. Not one. I've met many that say, oh, I hope it doesn't affect other Puerto Ricans. But all they've doubled down and told me was, I'm going to still vote for him. I hope it doesn't really, piss off other people. So I've yet to meet a single one. Matter of fact, most of them are doubling down. There was a huge caravan of support for Trump, like, I don't know, 50 or 100 cars in Puerto Rico megaphones out there cheering in the streets, driving up and down the road, letting everybody know who they're supporting for president. Now, that's probably why Trump is reaching people, right? While Harris is racking up the endorsements from the usual suspects, right? Usual suspects being Hollywood, the media, the rest of the left. But El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, he's also picking up some support. The actor Zachary Levi just put a video out, and he was very clear in why he's supporting Trump. Listen to this.
I'm not voting for Donald Trump. I'm voting for Donald Trump and Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard and Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk and J.D. Vance and everyone else that they're going to bring in this team, this Avengers, this Voltron, whatever you want to call it. And they're going to get in there and actually do what Donald Trump said he was going to do the first time, which is drain the swamp. And he has admitted that he couldn't do it and he didn't do it because he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't even think he was going to win the first time. And he had no time for his transition team. And then it was loaded with a bunch of sycophants and horrible people that were the swamp monsters that Bobby Kennedy has very accurately pointed out. And so now they're privately funding. I love this, that Trump is privately funding his own transition team, not waiting for the government. So they are ready to go. And they are not compromised. That is the government that I want. That is something. Bobby is 100%. He and Tulsi are going to be let loose to be the bulldogs that we need to hold people to account. And by the way, and they will do it fairly. They will do it civilly. They will do it in love. I've sat with both of them. They are incredibly wonderful human people.
Now, of course, it's typically the left, the Democrats, that enjoy the endorsements from actors, but even actors get tired of paying extra, right? Even actors get tired of hearing that he is a fascist, right? Some of you may not, right? Some of you, like Billy in Houston or whatever city he was in Texas, or what's the other one? Mr. Jerome, right? Jerome, who likes to call in and bust my stones. There's a lot of people that take exception to Trump just for being Trump, for merely existing. Not necessarily his policies. They don't care if they made more money, if life was better for them, their family, their friends, their neighbors. Doesn't matter. They want to hate on Trump. I get that. But ultimately, this guy, Levi, puts that aside and he says, you know what? I need to do the right thing here. This guy's got the winning ticket. He's got the winning slate. A bunch of Democrats, right? Bobby Kennedy Jr., Democrat turned independent. Tulsi Gabbard, Democrat turned independent, turned Republican. Trump himself, former Democrat turned Republican. Ultimately, if you're one of those people that says, look, I don't care about labels, I care about people. These are the people you want to do business with. Looks like they do the same thing. Trump is picking the people that he thinks are right for the job. I got to respect that. And I'm not thrilled about the whole former Democrat thing. You know, anybody who ever thought Bernie Sanders was great worries me. But having spoken with Tulsi Gabbard a couple of times, I have to say, I think she's solid. She's way more solid than anybody on the left, and especially Kamala or Fulano. What's his name? Tampon Tim Walz. So ultimately, this guy brings up a good point. And how many more are there that lack the courage to say, I'm voting for Trump? I think more and more of them are doing it because they feel comfortable. It's finally been normalized. But they continue. Trump is a fascist. Trump is a fascist. Trump is a fascist. But they don't say, I'm going to reduce inflation. I'm going to fix the problems that we're facing. Our border, the fentanyl crisis. You name it, there's problems. The fact that we still have inner city schools in inner cities that fail. How do we have failing school systems in first world America? What's missing there? Do they have running water? Yes. Do they have electricity? Yes. What's the problem? There's no lack of infrastructure. No, what there is a lack of family structure, a lack of caring, an over-reliance and an overemphasis on unions, and an under-reliance on personal responsibility, relying on oneself, self-reliance. Huge problem. These are the things we have to work on. And I think there's only one team that can do it. That's El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, and J.D. Vance. So anyway, keep it locked right here. We're going to continue our conversation. I've got more to discuss, a couple of more topics that I think you're going to enjoy. I want to get into a film that's out. There's a film called The 1916 Project. We're going to talk about that, as well as a book by the same name. And then, of course, President Trump visiting the National Faith Advisory Board. We're going to talk about that. And then your calls on Open Phone America. So keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Somebody might say, well, Margaret Sanger, she didn't quite know exactly what she was doing. Well, first of all, you're speaking from ignorance, because she wrote about herself and she wrote what her plans were, so much so that she, impressed Adolf Hitler. How do you impress Hitler?
My father walks up to me wearing a BLM shirt, and he says to me, why are you out here fighting a white man's issue? But he was a walking poster child for all things CRT, because in critical race theory, you see racism in all things and at all times. Even when a 6'4", 260-pound black man is trying to save a baby.
We're going to expose and discover who the real Margaret Sanger was, and how her attack and assault against the family in America explains our current culture of death and upside-down world that we're living in today.
That is a trailer for the 1916 Project. It's a new documentary by Seth Gruber from the organization, where did it go? Security, stand by. White Rose Resistance. And it's a pro-life group. And this one looks specifically into the founder of Planned Parenthood, her links to Adolf Hitler, and everything, all of the bad things that Margaret Sanger, has done throughout her time. And the film is streaming for free right now through November 13th. Seth, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rich. Bless you, brother.
Amen. God bless. And tell us a little bit about, what are people who are watching the film or who've seen the screening of it, what is the most shocking thing that they're walking away with, that they're finding out about Margaret Sanger?
Yeah, brother. I mean, this woman was called the patron saint of feminism, remember? I mean, like Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton got the Margaret Sanger Award, remember? I mean, Obama spoke at Planned Parenthood events. Like, there was a bust of Sanger's face at the Smithsonian, okay? Until 2020, when because of BLM Incorporated and the 1619 Project, America is systemically racist, so you got to cancel America and teach young people to hate their country, that whole thing. Because the revolution always eats their own, always, Rich, the left put Planned Parenthood in their crosshairs in July of 2020, and they basically said, hey, your founder, Margaret Sanger, she was a racist and a eugenicist, and they basically said for the first time in 110 years, going all the way back to critiques against Planned Parenthood from G.K. Chesterton, for the first time in 110 years, Planned Parenthood goes, you're right, she was a racist and eugenicist, she harmed black people, and they took her name off of their Sanger Health Center, their mega Manhattan, New York City Planned Parenthood clinic. So it leads to this question. It's like, well, then what were you hiding from us? Like, how did she suddenly become cancel-worthy because of BLM, Antifa, 1619 Project pressure, but she wasn't for the 110 years before that? No. I think you're lying to me, and I think we've been lied to about a lot of things for a long time. And so 1916 is the year when Sanger opened her very first clinic in the Brownsville neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. That was, for all intents and purposes, Rich, the first Planned Parenthood clinic, the billion-dollar organization today that received $700 million of our taxpayer dollars last year. They're the largest abortion provider in the world. They're the best-funded nonprofit in human history. They're the largest provider of the pornographic sex ed that's bringing angry moms and dads to school board meetings in our public schools. And they're the second largest provider of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for America's gender-confused youth. So what is this? What are we exposing? It's the hidden history of the sexual revolution. It's the dirty little secrets of the secular moral revolution, which is the same political and philosophical tradition of today's Democrat Party and the quote-unquote secular progressive left today. And so it's streaming for free on Twitter, now called X, right now until November 13th or just after that. It's a 75-minute full-length documentary that, honestly, before 2020, there might not have been a market for my film. I might have been labeled an Alex Jones conspiracy theorist, QAnon weirdo. But after 2020, people are waking up, Rich, and they're realizing, hey, maybe I've been lied to about a lot of things for a long time. And maybe there's a deeper history to some of the ideas behind today's cultural and political insanity. We expose all that in my book and film, The 1916 Project. Yes, it centers on the history of Margaret Sanger and the history of Planned Parenthood, but you actually can't understand abortion without understanding the sexual revolution, and you can't understand the sexual revolution without understanding cultural Marxism. All this stuff goes together, and we expose a lot more than just the killing of babies, which all the Democrats are saying is going to be the referendum issue for this election in just a week.
Really well said. Now, let's talk a little bit about how the stuff that she did a million years ago is tying into what's happening today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, that's the importance of studying history, right? Is like, we don't study history necessarily to like debate over every little detail of what happened then. We study history to understand how, oh gosh, actually what happened then is still happening now. It's connected to now. And if I understand that, I'll also be able to predict where this goes in the future, Rich, if nothing changes, right? And listen, Trump's hilarious. I hope he gets elected, right? Okay, but even Trump has espoused pro-choice talking points recently. Okay, and so even though I'm voting for him, brother, this insidious belief of abortion it's not just like a Democrat Party thing. Obviously, that's where the threats are coming from. Duh, anyone can see that. But unfortunately, it's also affected parts of the GOP who have walked away from their historic Republican Party position, super strong position on defending the unborn. And so we really have to understand these ideas to understand today's cultural insanity. There's a lot, and we don't even have the time to get into all this. That's why people should go watch this film right now on X. We're working on getting Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk to watch this film. And if Musk retweets it, Kamala Harris will lose the election because she's already bleeding from the black vote that she needs to get elected. But the importance of understanding Planned Parenthood's role in today's cultural insanity, I touched on earlier. They're not just the best funded nonprofit in human history. They're not just the largest abortion provider in the world. Rich, they're the second largest provider of chemically castrating transgender drugs for America's gender-confused youth. That's puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. What's the largest abortion provider doing in that? I thought they were supposed to stay in their lane. Now we get to the most important part. The secular progressive moral revolution never stays in their quote-unquote lane. It's not like they're just abortion-loving Moloch worshipers. For them, there's an underlying worldview that animates all of the sort of connective tissue behind why the left walks in lockstep with all of the various pagan secular issues that they value. That's very important to understanding. And so we expose the Hitlerian links, the Hugh Hefner Playboy sexual revolution links, the Nazi links, the eugenics links, the Darwin links, and the gender theory links behind today's cultural insanity. And we trace it back to 1916.
Amazing. I want to make sure everybody has a chance to watch this. Give them, again, is it only on X, or is there someone else they can do? Should they go to the 1916project.com, or should they go to X?
Yeah, the other way is any church in America can screen the film right now. Rich, we've done nearly 800 screenings since June. So if you want to watch it, go to the 1916project.com, and it'll take you to our Twitter to watch it right now.
Outstanding. Seth Gruber, outstanding work. White Rose Resistance. Check out the film, The 1916 Project. Godspeed to you, my brother. Thank you for being here. We're going to do it again soon. I'm coming right back. It's Rich Valdez. More to come straight ahead.
America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
I mean, honestly, religion is under threat in this country, serious threat, and we can't let that happen because I really believe it's sort of the fabric of our country. It's the thing that holds our country together, and we can't lose it, and we're not going to lose it.
That is President Trump making some remarks just yesterday at a very important meeting of the National Faith Advisory Board. And, of course, it's the waning days of the election, and, of course, you've got to reach out to every constituency that's out there. And this coalition for Republicans has always been, the silent majority, evangelical Christians, Catholics, people of faith. And Jenny Korn, who was a White House advisor and is the senior advisor to the National Faith Advisory Board, was on deck for that, put it all together, and she's here with us now. Jenny Korn, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on, Rich, and hello to all your listeners.
You bet. Thank you for staying up late with us. So I want to get a sense of the work that you guys are doing at the National Faith Advisory Board and why you felt it was important to have President Trump there at this point, right? 6-7 days away from Election Day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, National Faith Advisory Board is the largest, America's largest faith coalition, and it's the only faith organization that was born out of the White House. So, as you said, I used to work at the White House all 4 years under President Trump, and I have the scars to prove it, along with Pastor Paula White, who maybe your listeners might not know is President Trump's personal pastor for the last 24 years. And we ran what was called the White House Faith and Opportunity Initiative. And we were just building this coalition around so many policies: religious freedom, life, Israel, prison reform, you name it. We brought 10,000 people of faith through those White House doors in 4 years. So people of faith had a voice and a seat at the table. So when we left the White House, or as I say, we get kicked out of the White House, I went to Pastor Paul and I said, we can't let this coalition go. To try to recreate it would be almost impossible. So we had over 40,000 faith leaders of every denomination, every ethnic background from every state. And every month we'd have a monthly conference call on policy, and we get like 8,000 to 10,000 people on those calls. It's like, this is amazing. I've been doing, politics and government for 22 years, and I'd never seen such a great coalition. So we created the National Faith Advisory Board on the outside, and what we do is we educate, equip, and mobilize pastors and faith leaders all across the country so that we have a voice. So people of faith have a voice. And it's just, it's important that we hear from our leaders. We invited both candidates to come, and the president came, and we're happy to have him and have that really intimate interview about his faith. You haven't seen that before. He does rallies and everything, but this was a one-on-one interview with his pastor about his faith.
Outstanding. Folks, again, we're on with Jenny Korn from the National Faith Advisory Board. And this inaugural National Faith Summit that you guys had just yesterday in Georgia, I want to get a sense from you that were there and organized the event. What was this conversation? I guess, what are some of the takeaways or the highlights of the conversation between Pastor Paula White and former President Trump?
Yeah, it was incredible. The first question out the gate was, tell us about your faith, right? Not a lot of people know about President Trump's faith. And he talked about attending Sunday school. He talked about the Bible that his mother gave him that he used during inauguration and put in the Oval Office. He talked about the influence of Norman Vincent Peale and how his dad took him to the Billy Graham Crusades. He loves the Graham family. And so he's been a person of faith from a young childhood. And in fact, the way he met Pastor Paula White was he saw her on TV because as a businessman, he watched Christian television. And he called her up and she says, repeated verbatim some of her sermons, even better than her congregants. And and he goes, "You have the it factor." And she says, "That's what we call the anointing, sir." And that became their relationship. And so that's something that people didn't know about that. So that was a takeaway, like the president's true faith. He doesn't wear it on his sleeve. But I would say, he talked about the story, which he's done before, about getting shot and how that that was a miracle to him, and it must have been God. The second big takeaway was that he announced that he would have the faith office as a standalone office that would report directly to the president, so elevating the faith community and faith issues. So those were the two big takeaways. There are a lot of things he talked about, but those were two of the big ones.
Outstanding. And Jenny Korn, I want to get, I guess, your handle on this, right? You're someone of faith, and that's fantastic. But you're also somebody who's been around politics and government for several decades, and you get this better than most. And what's your take on the role that faith is playing in this 2024 election? My personal sense is that it's more so than it ever has before, but perhaps I'm biased. Your thoughts?
No, you are correct. I think people of faith had such a hand in policy under the Trump administration, and they were able to come back after the Obama years because they felt like they were neglected. And so, like I said, the religious freedom issues, the Israel issue, even things like prison reform, which you think, why do they involve? Well, because some of the most successful programs of getting prisoners to re-enter into the regular society are done by churches and people of faith. And so they had a amazing seat at the table. And then under Biden, it's just been one thing after another. It's not even other people's rights. It's discriminating of people of faith. You know, one of the things that President Trump championed was the Little Sisters of the Poor. Under Obamacare, they were mandated to provide abortion and pills, contraception. This is nuns. You can't make an exception for the Little Sisters of the Poor who are trying to feed the hungry, clothe the homeless, and do these amazing things that they do and give up and they sacrifice, right? And so it's just this government coming in to the church and people of faith and restricting their rights and not being able to have their freedom. So they have found a voice, and you see these pastors like Pastor Paula White, like Pastor Jensen Franklin, like Eric Metaxas, Pastor Travis Johnson, who are now going, wait, you guys are, you say you don't want us to be involved in politics or government, but boy, government is involved with us and we're trying to restrict us on what we can do. And so you see them boldly go out under biblical values and speaking out, and under National Faith Advisory Board, if you saw the lineup, we had 23 amazing speakers. They feel like they're doing this together, and they have cover.
Outstanding. Folks, we're on with Jenny Korn, former White House advisor. She's a senior advisor to the NFAB, the National Faith Advisory Board. And I guess the question that I'll pose here, and we'll get the answer on the other side, is will this continue? Or will we see more of the interference from the secular progressive left in the church as we move forward in 2024 and 2025 and forward? Your response when we come back. Folks, we're coming right back with Jenny Korn. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I suggest you go and buy a lottery ticket. The doctor told me that. I'm sitting in the... I said, why? He said, you are the luckiest guy. I've been doing this for 25 years. That I'm even talking to you is a miracle, or that I'm talking to you is a miracle, right?
Absolutely.
So somewhere, all of us, we had a little help up there. And I would like to think, and I don't know this at all, but I would like to think that it's because he wants our country and maybe the world to be helped. Wants our country to be helped. God wants our country to be helped. It would be a really nice thing to say that. But now we have to win an election, too.
All right, amigos, welcome back. That is El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th President of these United States, at the a big meeting yesterday discussing his faith, discussing all matters of importance with the National Faith Advisory Board. And our guest is Jenny Korn, former advisor in the White House 2 times over for 2 presidents. And she oversaw this event. And the question I posed, and Trump's comments really fit well here, is he's talking about, how important faith is for him and how God saved his life and how America needs more of God. And I believe all of that. My question is, I feel like the radical progressive left has been encroaching through communism, through leftism, through all sorts of secularism, and even worse, into the church, into issues of faith, into everyday society. And I don't know if that stops, and can we turn the ship around? Jenny Korn.
I absolutely think we can turn the ship around. What we do at the National Faith Advisory Board is we do monthly conference calls with literally thousands of faith leaders, people of faith, and we educate them, and then we go and we have this what's called a My Faith Matters tour, and we've been going all over the country, at least 10 or 12 different states, and we bring 200 faith leaders together at a time, and we talk about the issues that they care about, but we also talk to them about what the power is of the people of faith. Why can every other group in America have a voice, have an advocate, but people of faith have to be quiet? That doesn't make any sense in America. They're still Americans. And so when we talk to pastors, we're like, you have this influence. You have the influence in your congregation. You are a leader, because all the policies affect these people, right? So we get asked a lot, politics is a dirty word. We don't really like politics. We're like, listen, politics matters because policy matters, and policy matters because it affects people, and our people matter, and their faith matters. Why should that be excluded from the government? Because like I said before, government is interfering. Just take, and Rich, you know all these cases, but Coach Kennedy case.
There's a movie about it.
Came down to a man wanted to kneel and pray on a football field on his own. Now, some of his students wanted to come, or football players wanted to come and kneel with him. He didn't make them do that. They wanted to do that. 8 years in court. He gets fired. He takes it to the courts. 8 years, and it has to go all the way to the Supreme Court for a man in America to kneel and pray. That's insane. A little girl in Washington State who's 12 at a public school that her parents are paying tax dollars to wants to create an interfaith group, right? You got LGBTQ, you've got every other group at that school, but they tell her no, she can't have an interfaith club. And so she fights back, and she also wins, and they have the interfaith group now. Not even just a Christian group, interfaith, so all her friends could pray together. So you have a pastor, and this will be the last one I say, but the pastor in Ohio who decided it was on his heart that God said, I need your church to be open 24 hours. For whatever, to feed people, to counsel them, whatever it was. Well, homeless people started to come into the church to sleep because it was freezing outside in Ohio during the winter. Guess what? The church was okay with that. They were okay with the homeless people coming because, okay, they're cold. We're supposed to help people. Guess who wasn't okay with it? The city, the county. They criminally charged him every day that he allowed it. Why? Because his church wasn't zoned for bedrooms. They'd rather have homeless people sleep on the street than be in a church. So you're just in case after case, and I could do 100 cases right there, and everyone's like, well, religious freedom is not being eroded. Yes, it is, and people are fighting back, and that's the positive part of this. People are fighting back, and they're winning. Coach Kennedy won. That girl won. The pastor in Ohio won. And so that's the good news. So yes, there is hope, and people of faith, they know that they've got to fight back. Ask the people in Syria or Iran if it matters who their elected officials are.
Jenny Korn, are we going to win next Tuesday?
Well, now I'll put my political hat on, or my analyst hat on. If you look at these trends of where Trump is at and Kamala is at, and you compare them to 2020 with Biden and Trump, and then Hillary Clinton and Trump, Trump is leading, and in the trajectory is in the right place, and Kamala is not moving up. She keeps sliding back. So the fact that she's underwater with besides Biden and Hillary, is good news for the president. The other good news for President Trump is the Latino vote and the black vote. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, he's only in the teens with the black vote." If it gets up to 19, 20 points, you're talking about razor-thin margins in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in places where the black vote is higher in number. And in the Latino vote, you're talking about Nevada, a very competitive state, Arizona, and even in Georgia and North Carolina, where the Latino community has grown 125%. He's on track to get 46, 47, 48% of the Latino vote, and she's in the 50s. Now, she's getting the majority. Obama got 71% of the Latino vote, so he is leading in these communities, and he's also, the trends are going his way. So it looks like he has a great chance to win.
You know, Jenny Korn, I know we have to wrap, but I just want to say I just saw a tweet come in of the video of President Trump leaving Allentown, Pennsylvania. Now, outside of the island of Puerto Rico and the Bronx and Orlando, Allentown has more Puerto Ricans than anywhere on the planet. And after this controversy at Madison Square Garden, and I was at that rally, I barely heard the joke, to be honest with you, and I was in the room. Very stupid joke. I will classify this guy, pardon my vernacular, as a pendejo, this comedian. But he it's a very fanciful word in Spanish for comedians that tell bad jokes, right? And the everybody on the left and in the critics of the president are screaming foul. No, this is it. They've destroyed his lead, and I'm looking at an incredibly packed house in Allentown. So, your thoughts on that and Pennsylvania overall?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it's amazing how outraged people get on the left by something a comedian says. But literally, George Lopez, who's a Democrat, was at an event, and he said that when they build the wall, they shouldn't leave the tools out because Mexicans are going to steal it. I'm Mexican. Guess what? I know he's telling a joke. But here's the problem. There's such a double standard. So it's okay for George Lopez to say that, but it's not okay for this comedian. And believe me, I didn't like what the comedian said, so what that. But the point is, it's a double standard.
Yeah, it wasn't funny, right?
No, it wasn't. But here's the thing, and I'm also on Twitter and on X, and I'm seeing a lot of Puerto Rican support going, I support President Trump, I support President Trump, and I think they want to make it an issue. But President Biden just came out and called half of America garbage. So he commented on this comment about Puerto Rico, and then he said his supporters are garbage. So once again, it's okay for the sitting president of the United States to call half of America garbage. President Trump just did an interview with Sean Hannity, and he said, I love the Puerto Rican people, and they love me. Whenever I go there and I see them, they come up and kiss me and hug me. And I served in the administration, and during the hurricane, the president made sure millions of dollars went into that.
This is an important point, and I don't want to gloss over it, but I got to take a quick pause. Stick with me. Jenny Korn, we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back, amigos. We continue our conversation with Jenny Korn. President Trump spoke at the National Faith Advisory Board. Jenny Korn, go for it.
So we were talking about Puerto Rico, and I just wanted to say that when the hurricane hit with President Trump and he was in office, I was right there in the White House, and I was representing the faith and the Latino community. He rebuilt the dams. He rebuilt the electrical systems, the electrical grid. He waived the Jones Act that would authorize shipping restrictions so that PR could get expedited relief, and he put billions of dollars into there. So they're more offended by this joke than they are about the fact that he actually helped Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans.
Yeah, I think it's manufactured outrage from the media. Jenny Korn, National Faith Advisory Board. You are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Rich.
You bet. God bless. Folks, Open Phone Across America starts right now. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3 of the program. It is Tuesday night. Our phone number is 833-482-5337-833-4-Valdez. And if you're anywhere in the country listening live, like our friends in New York, in California, in Florida, in Hawaii, we're all over the country, Colorado, and Alaska and Pittsburgh and Chicago, you name it, we're on in a lot of places. So I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to call 833-482-5337-833-4-Valdez. And earlier I read a headline. It said Steve Bannon was released from prison, and I said, and he'll be back. I did not mean that. That was me misspeaking. He's not. He's done. He completed his 4-month sentence. And he's done. He'll be back. It sounded like I was saying he'll be back in jail. No, he's going to be back in the saddle campaigning for Trump. He's restarting his podcast, his program, all that stuff in order to get Trump across the finish line. So congratulations to Steve Bannon. And earlier this year, Peter Navarro, who's a regular on our program, he was also released from prison after serving some time in jail for not complying with the subpoena because he had presidential immunity or claiming presidential privilege and being immune from that. And he was not immune. Then they threw the book at him, just like they didn't throw the book at Eric Holder when they found him in contempt. Yep, double standard. If there were, the left would have no standards of law at all if they didn't have double standards, as the saying goes. So that's that one. I also want to remind you that we are 7 days away from the big election, the 24 election, and we're going to bring you live coverage on election night. So make sure you're tuned in here. And also some stuff that's going on today. Let me see what else I want to get to you. Harris, there's a poll out that says Harris is up by a few points in Michigan. We also have, very interesting here, hundreds of ballots found on the side of the road in Florida. I actually saw the video earlier today. Some Cuban guys and a girl, I think, were in their car driving in Florida, and they stop. The guy gets out. He pulls in. It's all on video. They're like, what's that in the middle of the road? They bring this locked, tote bin with a padlock on it. They bring it into their car. They turn on the interior light of their car, use their cell phone light, and it says, Dade County Board of Elections or whatever. And they're like, wow, these are votes. And they immediately put 2 and 2 together. And they're like, they're throwing away the Trump votes. At least that's how I perceived it. And it is very funny, the initial reaction to it. But they filmed themselves bringing it to the local police department and giving them back the box of votes or ballots that were cast, I should say, and the accompanying police report where they submitted it to the authorities. So good for them for finding the votes. If it's anything like the last election where Miami went for Trump, great. Let's do it again. So that's the thing, though. You've got hundreds of ballots that were discovered after they fell off a truck in Florida. The county's election supervisor said the containers were sealed and the ballots had already been scanned and tabulated. Oh, like my mom would say, menos mal. No harm, no foul if they're actually counted. I don't know if they are or aren't is really the question. But interesting to see how things are going down, right? Yesterday or the day before, there was a video of a fire. They were putting out a fire in a drop box. Now, who would burn a drop box in an area that is likely going to go Democrat? Nobody. But who would burn one in an area that's likely going to go Republican? I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of people that would like to do it, and they did. So that was the video I saw yesterday of people blazing this box and and the fire department coming to respond to it. So you got Trump area ballot boxes being torched. You've got the proverbial box falling off the truck. What else? What else is going to happen? Anyway, we have some interesting conversations tonight. We talked about the politics of the plantation, an idea brought about by Malcolm X, and very, very interesting conversation. Had nothing to do in reality with race, and everything to do with the hierarchical structure of, and pathologies, as the author put it, of how people tend to vote and how they kind of identify within the body politic. But very, very interesting discussion. Then we spoke with former White House advisor Jenny Korn on faith and issues of faith regarding President Trump's recent speech at her advisory board and national gathering, the national summit, and, of course, the hidden evils of Margaret Sanger, historically just an actual disaster for people and an abomination on the issue of life. So much to talk about there, plus everything else you guys want to talk about. And we're going to get to your calls momentarily. But I saw this clip of an Asian American woman that really had a lot to say about Kamala Harris, who I like to call que mala eres. How bad she is how that translates into English from Spanish. And listen to que mala eres.
Chinese first generation, we love Trump from our bottom of the heart because we know Trump is the only one can save America. Kamala is so stupid. She is so low. IQ equal no Q, no qualification to be the president. You shall stay away from that position. You already lost the position. You lost our trust. You lost our vote. You just need to go home to stay home. You cannot do anything to save America. You are so stupid. You don't know anything. You cannot even answer any question from the camera, from all the media. How you can be on the stage to fight for America, to protect American people, to protect all the world. You are not qualified. You just need to go home. Let Trump to save America, to save the world, to put America first. If America to be strong, to be saved, and then America can save the whole world. Trump, we love you. We love you forever. Never ever surrender. Fight, fight, fight. Fight for Trump. Fight, fight, fight. Fight, fight, fight. Trump, we love you so much. Trump, you are the best president.
All right. I think we have found someone who can campaign with as much energy and vigor as El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States himself. Right? This woman, an Asian American woman from New York, she was at the Trump rally that I attended on Sunday. And let me tell you, what a pistol, what a firecracker, and brilliant, right? She laid this out really well. She wasn't just yelling that Kamala is stupid. That was just part of it. She really gave her 2 cents on que mala eres, and I'm glad you had a chance to listen to that. I want to get some reaction from our callers, and we've got calls from all over the place, from Maryland, from Indiana, Virginia, from Idaho, South Carolina, Montana, Florida, and more. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And let me see, where do I want to start? I'm going to go here to Frank in Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC. Go ahead.
Last night you told us about several of the occupations you held, and that must have taken a great deal of courage to switch like that. You didn't have a college degree. You had dependents. You had 2 kids, a wife. What gave you the faith and the courage to go ahead? Because with a government job, you get life insurance, health insurance, annual leave, sick leave, a union, retirement benefits. It's a tremendous temptation to give up trying to start your own business and getting a government job and let the government take care of you. And just one other thing, there's a great classic book written by a man named Albert J. Nock called Our Enemy, the State. And he used to refer to government employees as job holders. And that's what they are, and that's what I was. But I was very grateful because of all the benefits I got.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a story, Frank. It's an excellent question, by the way. And I guess maybe my timeline was misunderstood. But I was in high school, and in high school, I was poor, and I didn't have enough money to get the type of haircut I liked. It was one of these really short buzz cuts that, honestly, our barber didn't go that low on the sides. He didn't really use the straight razor. He used it on the edging, but he wouldn't use it on the side. And there were only a handful of barbers doing it in Manhattan. I lived close enough to Manhattan where it was like 30 minutes away by train and bus. So we could get in and out of the city pretty quickly from North Jersey. And that's what we did. We'd go to Astor Place Barbers in Manhattan, and it was expensive, right? Back then, it was like $15 for a haircut, and we're talking about 1992, 93. So we're always looking for ways to make money to afford this haircutting issue that we had. We wanted to go to the city all the time. And I quickly learned that I needed to always have some sort of job. And I also learned how to cut hair. Watching these barbers, I would practice on my heads. They were my friends' heads. They were my guinea pigs. And I would say, come here, let me try that. And I bought a pair of clippers. I forget where I got them from. I think they were a friend of mine's, and I took them from him initially, and then I got a pair for myself afterwards. And trial and error, and we started cutting each other's hair, but really I was the one that was able to get it, so I became like the de facto barber in my group. And as a stunt, as a prank, a friend of mine who was in a printing class had to print 2,000 flyers for a school project, and he had to make up an imaginary business. Well, he thought it would be funny to put my name and my phone number on the flyer and create a name for my haircutting business. And it actually took off. These flyers made their way around the high school. And before you knew it, the 4 or 5 guys that I was, practicing these cool haircuts and designs and all that stuff, because it was popular then to like carve a design into the side of somebody's head with clippers. And before you knew it, I actually developed a clientele. And in my senior year of high school, I stopped going to high school during the day, and I transferred to high school at night so that I could go to cosmetology school during the day. And when I did that, my older brother was like, this thing's going really well for you. You're cutting a lot of people's hair. I think you have a whole business here that you don't see yet. And I didn't believe him, but he believed more in me than I believed in myself, and loaned me $8,000 and did everything for me. He took me to the store and he said, look, this guy is selling a beauty salon. He's getting out of the business. You can take over the lease, buy the business, buy the equipment. Helped me to negotiate the deal. And when I was not even 17, I was like 16 and a half, I had this place. And I didn't know what to do with it. I was going to school from 9 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon to study cosmetology, cutting hair afterwards in my shop, I guess illegally, right? Because I wasn't really allowed to cut hair. The owner of the shop stayed on as the shop manager to keep it somewhat legal during the transition. And I did that. And I did it for a number of years until I was done with school at the end of that year. Graduated from high school, and then ran my business. And it was in running the business that I started to make money. And by the time like 1999 came around, I had 2 brand new cars. And I thought it was fantastic. And I was like, God bless America. I love this. And I hated this guy that everybody called Uncle Sam, because they always wanted to take some of my money. And I thought, you want to turn somebody into a conservative real quick, take away their money through taxes, 32% for small business owners. And I thought that was ridiculous. Now, of course, there was write-offs, so you learn things quickly. You find a CPA that can help you, and you start to learn what you have to learn. And that's how I started my life, right? So as a young man, I didn't get into government until I was in my 30s. So I spent all of my 20s as an entrepreneur, running my own business. From there, I opened up a cell phone place with the money I made there. And I also, I bought a condo. I sold the condo. I made a good amount of money on that. I bought a 1-family house. And all of that, I was 24, 25, 26 at the time. And so I had done all these things. And then I started my family kind of young. I was 23 when my daughter was born. So we had to make these concessions. But you're right. There was a degree of risk that I had to take with my family. But for whatever reason, I guess because I was relatively risk averse and had done well in business as a young man, I always felt like the right thing for me to do is to make my own way, not to have this job where they tell me what to do. And I loved all the things you mentioned. In New Jersey, state of New Jersey employees, we would get not only a pension after you were vested, and you could be vested in 10 years, but you had to be a certain age, I think 55 or older to retire. But there was also something called deferred compensation, which in effect was like a 403B, like a 401k type of thing. that you could also save and take the money out on, which was like another pension. On top of that, if you didn't use your sick days, you could cash them out to the tune of, I knew some of my colleagues that were retiring when I got into the government that were cashing out $225,000 worth of sick days because they didn't take any, quote unquote, didn't take any. So, I mean, there were so many ways to really make it in government in New Jersey. And ultimately, I just didn't like the fact that when I would tell them, if you do it like this, we could do this in 3 hours. And they'd say, no, but you have a 3-week turnaround on that. Just take your time. And I thought, I'm stealing money. I'm robbing the taxpayer. If we can get this job done right now, we need to get it done right now. They hated that. They ended up hating me for it because the bureaucracy loves the bureaucracy. And it kind of shaped who I am today. But that's part of the story. Frank, I got to take a pause here. Be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
I will always listen to you, even if you don't vote for me. I will always tell you the truth, even if it is difficult to hear. I will work every day to build consensus and reach compromise to get things done. And if you give me the chance to fight on your behalf, there is nothing in the world that will stand in my way.
That, of course, Que Mala Eres at her rally tonight on the Washington Mall, and very well attended. It looked like all of D.C., Virginia, Maryland, everybody was there tonight. And I want to go to Tracy Terre Haute, Indiana, listening online, richvaldez.com. Go right ahead quickly.
Hey, I just want to say thank you for putting me on the show tonight. You're having a great show. Really enjoyed all your interviews you've done this evening, and I appreciate you letting me be part of your show. You had played a clip a while ago from her on the Mall, and she was saying that, again, talking about Donald Trump, and he's absolutely a Nazi. He's a social, which means national socialist, and he's Hitler, but her speaking from the Mall, right from her way of thinking, since he spoke at the Market Square Garden or whatever it is, at the Garden, well, since she spoke from the same plaza that he spoke at to overthrow the government, then by her way of reasoning, she is an insurrectionist and she wants to overthrow the government, and she should be sued and she should be put in prison because she spoke at the same place he spoke and he wants to overthrow the government. So, I mean, he's a Nazi, obviously, because he spoke at the arena in New York. So she's as bad as he is. It's her reasoning. I'm just liking to use her reasoning to compare the two. So,
I love it. You got to use the logic to its most logical extreme, right? And her argument here was that you're right. She said that Trump was reenacting, and so did Hillary Clinton. They said Trump was reenacting the 1939 Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden. And you're saying that she's reenacting the January 6th Stop the Steal rally. That makes her an insurrectionist. I love it. It's brilliant, Tracy. Good point. Thanks for the call. Shout out to everybody in Terre Haute, Indiana. And, of course, we're coming back with the rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Night. This is Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez live with you till 1 a.m., and we're going to get to your calls momentarily, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. There was a report on Fox News that it's like a video that they showed of a woman, and a cop rolls up on the scene, and she's like, oh my God, this guy's trying to rape me. And he catches the guy right in the act. Absolute insanity what's going on with some of these illegal immigrants. And you really got to ask yourself, are we really that gullible that we will forget that we're facing a crisis of epic proportion with illegal immigration and with inflation and job numbers that were fake? And the potential for a third global conflict like World War III. And the only thing that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris can do is throw fuel on the fire. It's not lost on me. Listen to this.
Hey. He's trying to rape me. Get off her now. Help me. Get off her now.
Give us a channel.
Thank God. Thank God. Don't you move. Don't you move.
Come here, you. Come here. You're good.
The suspect in this case is Luis Hernandez Mañeo, 27-year-old male who's in this country illegally, who the day before the incident applied for asylum. He's now sitting in our jail with 3 felony counts against him, and the Border Patrol has lodged a detainer against him.
That is Sheriff Chitwood from Volusia County. And this is a problem when you're catching these men in the act. Now, I got to tell you, look, my family, we're Hispanic, right? We're Puerto Ricans. I've yet to see a Puerto Rican that's being caught as a rapist. Now, I'm sure that there are Puerto Rican rapists out there, but it seems like a disproportionate number of people coming from Central and South America, men, are rapists. Now, when I make this argument, my friends on the left always push back and they go, no, it's white men that are disproportionately rapists. Just look at the data. That may be true. But the issue is that's a problem we're already dealing with if they're allowed to be here. I'm not saying I condone it. I'm just saying we have to deal with the problem we have, not add more problems. And this seems to be that it's a free-for-all. It's Neanderthal. It's caveman city in some of these places where people are coming and they're just like, oh, I am man, you're woman, come here. Arr. And this doesn't work like this. And I'm not trying to trivialize rape. I'm trying to simplify it for my own mind's sake that, wow, like what planet are any of these people on that they think that they can do this? But this is the problem we have. And why are we dealing with it? Because of the ineptitude or complicity of the transnational criminals or transnational criminal sympathizers in the White House, in the Naval Observatory, and at the Department of Homeland Security. But for Alejandro Mayorkas, Que Malaeres, and Joe El Baboso Biden, we could probably have a safer and more secure border like the one that Trump left us. That's how we know we can have it. Isn't that something? Anyway, I want to get to your calls because I know you guys wanted to chime in on this. Let's go to, let me see, Eduardo, Tampa, Florida, calling us with a comment on Democrats. Go ahead. All right. I guess he's not there. Let us continue. Let's go to Larry, Chesapeake, Virginia, WNIS. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir. It occurred to me today, it just hit me like all of a sudden, that the Democrats are trying to go full circle. I'll explain that. Democrats were the original party of slavery. And it seems like they're going towards socialism and they're attempting to create slavery again with all of us. It had nothing to do with race. They want all of us to be under their control. And that's what it looks like. Now, one of the things that really confuses
how do you
me,
come up to that conclusion? Do you feel like there's a policy or a proposal that
puts the government in control? That makes us basically under their control, like a slave.
Okay, so, but you're not saying like having us plow fields and things like that. You're saying control of of policy, a tyrannical government.
Yeah, being under control. And one of the things that really confuses me, we're told that they're going towards socialism and communism, and yet all the Hollywood people line up behind them. Look at China and look at Russia. How well does the movie industry do there?
Yeah.
I mean, are they that dumb? They're going to put themselves out of business?
Well, I doubt they will. I think the model that we would use here is the same, very similar to the model that they use in China. The problem is in China, they've never had a robust movie industry because their censorship is a little bit more stringent. And honestly, they have more family values than the American left. But all that being said, I think the idea of the government doing what they do to pave the way for private industry, where you have the government working hand in hand with private industry. It's a very fascistic way of looking at it. But this is really the model that they use. So it's not a pure communism model, but it uses all of the elements of pure communism, if you will. And I think this is where they want to go. They want this thing where they just create a permanent upper class, an upper echelon of people, and everyone else is part of the permanent lower class, a permanent peasant class, and that's where they want us. And if there is any type of movement towards the top, some sort of upward mobility, then that would be a small and shrinking middle class that you'll either get pushed back down, or maybe you make it into the upper echelon, right? And you're accepted into that world. But I think it'll be more difficult to get there as time goes by, especially with the control that they have that you're talking about, like the digital currency with the social credit scores, all of these things where electric vehicles, right, where they can turn your car off, they can issue you a ticket for not doing or comporting yourself the right way. They can make sure your car doesn't work. Instead of putting a boot on it or towing you, they can just turn off your electric car and say, yep, you can't drive. With digital currency, they can say, well, let's turn off your cash because you don't have any, right? Let's just turn off your currency and not allow you to use it. Or say, you know what, you have some demerits against you. You're not allowed to buy that trip to Miami anymore. You can only go down the block on the bus, but you can't take a flight to Miami because you've overextended your carbon footprint use for the year or for the 6-month period. I mean, there's so many things that they could do, and this would be supported by private industry. And then they go ahead with this new idea, a relatively new idea, where they want to create these 15-minute cities that they call them, where everything is within walking distance, where you can ride your bike to it. You don't need a bus to get around. You go to school, you go to work, you go to everything right in this little community where you can tour the whole thing in 15 minutes. And that sounds like fun for a lot of people. For others, it may not be. But the problem is, again, you're limited. If you leave the 15-minute city, are you allowed to own a car? And if you do own a car, are you going to get charged more for it? Like congestion pricing. I mean, the left has figured this whole thing out, and they're going to make it very expensive to have liberty. Very interesting conversation. Larry in Chesapeake, Virginia, WNIS, thank you for the call. Folks, I'll take a pause right here. We're going to come right back. Speed round, the rest of your calls and more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
My hands across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We're going to start the speed round early because there's calls from all over the place. Ohio, Idaho, Indiana, South Carolina, and Montana as well, plus everybody else that's flashing and calling in. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. I want to go to Larry, Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Go for it.
Okay. I want to talk to you about a consumption sales tax that I would hope could be a replacement for the internal revenue system.
Yeah.
Trump has offered ending tax on tips, as you may know.
Yep.
But it's pitiful little for real, true tax relief. And I submit that
I didn't hear you. What's the last part?
I said it's pitiful relief for true tax relief.
Okay, so quickly.
I submit that instead, that the tax revolution that would change America and the world is the abolishment of the IRS tax tyranny and the establishment of a 15% national sales tax. The sales tax would be due and payable by all entities who purchase at the point of sale of any commodity or product produced in or from the United States properties or possessions.
Yeah, so you're saying products that come from China wouldn't be taxed?
I'm talking about anybody who buys anything in America or from America has to pay a 15% sales tax.
Super. Yeah, this is the idea of a flat tax.
That makes sense. Oh, it's not a flat tax. It's a sales tax.
Does it fluctuate?
And it says that it's a sales tax.
Does it fluctuate?
It says, okay.
Is it a flat rate? Is it going to stay at 15% or is it going to change?
Absolutely. It's locked in at 15%.
All right,
now,
so it sounds like the flat tax to me, Larry, and it's a great idea. It's been around for a long time, and a lot of people have been pushing for it, and it never happens because the IRS has its tentacles in everything. My hope is that we'll get closer and closer to that. This is why when they say Trump is a radical and extremist, I hope he is. And I hope that he will abolish the IRS. I just can't imagine, where do they go? Kicking and screaming. Do they go, you know what? Trump's thinking of eliminating us. Let's take it easy. It's going to be a very uphill fight with a lot of swamp creatures. Doesn't mean it's impossible. It definitely means I've got his back, and I hope that it happens. Whether it's a national sales tax or statewide, there's so many ways of putting this together, but I'm honestly for all of them. Honestly, anything where you get rid of the IRS, I think is good. Consumption-based taxes are I think, a fair idea. Trump's idea of using tariffs, I think, will help in some degree. It may drive prices up in some regard. So I think we got to be careful with it. But I think checking China is very important. So it's a tool that's going to give us the leverage we need to get to where we have to be. I hope it happens in his next term. God willing, he gets a term. Larry in Charleston, thank you for your call. WTMA. Let us continue. I want to go to Sarah, Bedford, Indiana. WBIW.
Hey, I was going to talk about days off, but you know what? After hearing about that attempted rape, I'm going to say this. I think a lot of these illegals are being told in their country of origin by somebody that, hey, you've got a right to this land, and almost like war, like an invading army. And, invading armies don't respect the civilian populace of the country they invade. And I think there really is that mentality going on that, hey, you don't need to respect American citizens, right? You can do whatever you want. So, anyway, thank you.
No, you know what? You could be right. The most barbaric and old school way of invasion was raping and pillaging a village. That's what they did to their enemies, and beheading their firstborns. And it's biblical, So I had never seen it in modern times until October 7th, right? The attack on Israel. But when you put it in that sense, it makes sense. I think you might be onto something. That might be the mindset that they're coming here with. Lord knows they've done a lot of that type of raping and pillaging, and it's a shame, and it needs to end. Sarah, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Shout out to WBIW. And let me see. We're going to do one more. We're going to go to Paul, Boise, Idaho, KBFI. Go for it. All right, we're going to pause on Paul. We'll take the break here. Come right back to the rest of your calls. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Marie in Las Cruces, New Mexico, KTSM. Go right ahead quickly.
Hi. Yes, I know you only have a little time, but I just wanted to empathize with that lady that almost got raped by that illegal migrant.
Yes.
Something happened to me Friday where I went to the store at night to get some sodas, and there was a drunk man cussing me out in Spanish out there, and I thought he was going to come at me, and I ran inside the store and got a customer to help me. Well, he went out, him and his little boy walked me to the car, and I had my dog in the car, and this guy, he was all drunk right there, and he had his Mexican flag out there, and I'm nothing against anybody from Mexico. My father was from Mexico. I'm Native American. But the guy was calling me all kinds of names in Spanish, and I got really scared. And I don't know if you remember me, Rich. I called you about 8 months ago to let you know that this country better watch out because they were letting all these illegals coming in, and we're like only 40 minutes away from the border in El Paso.
Oh, yeah, I remember. And this is a problem that's been going on, and one that instead of solving the problem, the current administration's exacerbated the problem. And it's a shame. Well, Marie, I'm sorry you went through that. And my hope is that you'll get some mace or buy a gun because those things help in situations like that. But I'm glad it worked out really well. And you're right. We should all take heed to what you're talking about and realize, you know what? What's it going to take? Another Jocelyn Nungarai story, another Ruby story, and another one of these horrible stories where these women and these girls are being are murdered or raped. It's just unnecessary, and it's unacceptable. Marie, thank you for your call. Paul, Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ. Go ahead, brother.
Hey, good evening, Rich. Hey, it was kind of a treat today. We could see Donald Trump Jr., Vivek Ramaswamy, and Troy Balderson, our state representative from Zanesville, Ohio today.
Nice.
Very cool. And, yeah, and I would just like to say, yes, like that lady said, it's tough. You know, if you think Kamala Harris has got the answer, go ahead and elect her. But what I want to say real quick, Rich, was I do think that that Donald Trump has got the right idea when you give tax breaks to the rich that bring in these corporations that employ American people, you know, and give them money. I mean, my old man had a saying, and you was to this, Rich. It takes money to make money.
Yeah, and there's another saying, Paul. It goes like this. I've never gotten a job from somebody that was broke. When they talk about all these tax cuts for the rich, who do you think makes these jobs, right? Who do you think owns these companies? Anyway, very good point, Paul. Thank you for the call, my man. I appreciate it. Let me see. I don't know. How much time do we have? Count. 1 minute flat with 3 calls to go. I'm going to go to Jim, Southern Missouri, KTTR. Go for it. You really got 30 seconds. Jim, silenced by my incredibly coiffed hair. Robert in Charleston, South Carolina, says that the flat rate tax is unfair. Robert, why?
Man in America is going to pay as much for his new shoes as the richest man in America, and that's very unfair because both need shoes. That's an absolute essential. They can't get a job without shoes.
Wouldn't both pay 15% no matter where they're coming from?
The
Sounds fair to me.
Could pay 1,000%. It wouldn't bother him one thing. He would never notice it.
Yeah, but just because you can pay, don't mean you have to pay. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night, and God bless you, America. We'll do it again tomorrow. I'm Rich Valdez.